Good morning, everyone. I appreciate Nick's and Heike invitation for me to present this research project, which started in 2018 and continues for 2 years. The research outcomes were the publication of a book and a feature-length documentary. The aim was to generate a collective analysis and reflection about the practices of the teachers engaged in the research. The four contemporary dance departments of higher education institutions that took part in the research are, from the capital city, the Centro de Investigación Coreográfica, which is part of the National Institute of Fine Arts, and from province, the School of Dance of the Universidad Veracruzana, and the Universidad de las Américas Puebla, the School of Fine Arts of the Universidad Michoacana de San Nicolás de Hidalgo, institution to which I belong. Before showing fragments of the documentary that will accompany my reflections, it seems important to address a bit of the research background, because the historical events of the transition from modern Mexican dance to the construction of a contemporary dance in Mexico have marked the pedagogical changes to these days. So let's go to see it.
In Mexico, dance technique school flourished in the 50s during the transition period from Mexican modern dance towards contemporary dance. Mexican modern dance was closely tied to the nationalist artistic trend known mainly by the muralist movement. Such an artistic trend highlights national heroes like Emiliano Zapata, as well as revolutionary figures like the Caudillo and the Adelita. In this context, dance is almost entirely dramatized, emphasizing the character expression of the emotion through movement. In the artistic trend that covers the period from 1930 to 1950, there is a great need for giving voice to the national identity through the recovery of folkloric elements. Until this moment, dance schools with strong technical training did not exist. It was only when National Ballet of Mexico, one of the first state-subsidized dance groups in the country, went on a world tour that dancers and choreographers realized a weakness in their technique. Aware of their training needs, when the National Ballet of Mexico returned from the tour, they brought with them a number of teachers, mainly Graham technique teachers, to strengthen their training, which in turn triggered a huge interest in dance technique development in the country. For 5 decades, approximately, codified dance techniques were the fundamental basis of any educational processes. Thus, to study dance and to train in the codified techniques, also known as a creation and technical language, became inseparable in Mexico. Mexican choreographers moved away from the modern dance phrase and set aside the tradition of narrative works. However, unlike the rest of the world, they did not let go of the technical aspect. Instead of exploring a wide range of movement languages, they held onto the improvement of the techniques. This is how, for many years, a right way of moving has been foregrounded, which limited the language and bodily experience in the learning processes. In opposition to the above, at the same time, a passionate impulse emerged in the Mexican modern dance, which has crossed various artistic currents until today. This is due to the deep mark left by the nationalist trend, eager for expressing Mexican identity and the struggles of Mexican people. Contreras states that, within contemporary dance in Mexico, I feel that either you leave the energy in a passionate and inflammatory way, or you don't have the right of stepping stage. End quote. For Contreras, the notion of arrojo, which in English means both the truth and courage, will be a common characteristic approach in both senses, as a potential physical risk that arises when throwing oneself into movement, as well as the courage displayed by Mexican dance practitioners when exposing their vulnerability in their work. With this background, I now share fragments of the documentary The Voice of the Body, a kindness-based pedagogy for contemporary dance. It seems essential to me that the body speaks by themselves, that the corporality of all figures in the dance practice are expressed. Finally, I consider myself to be a channel for the dissemination of these voices.
Pienso que ser bailarín a mí en lo personal me ayuda a recordarme y a reconocerme como un elemento que tiene el valor de poner su cuerpo, tanto para decir lo que quiere decir, como para recibir la consecuencia de lo que...
Por estar bailando y por estar haciendo todo esto, de pronto ya cambié.
La docencia ha sido el mejor regalo que mi destino me ha dado.
Esto es la vida, o sea, esto es la vida.
Pero hay una cosa de bailar que solamente me sucede en instantes, un lapso en donde puedo sentir la totalidad. Pero cuando logro eso es sublime.
Hay caminos distintos, ¿no? de construir la corporalidad y de construirse como cuerpo en la danza.
Para mí eso ha sido la danza, hablar con otro lenguaje, hablar sin palabras literalmente, ¿no?
El lenguaje no verbal es poderoso y dice cosas que ni siquiera tú sabes.
Studying these 4 dance departments of higher education has led me to observe gradual shift from a pedagogy focused on a traditional approach, which considers the body as an object to be shaped by a predefined way of dancing, foreign to the practitioner behaviorism, towards a pedagogy that acknowledges the body as knowledge, where practitioners' bodies feed each other through the learning process. Humanistic constructivist. The comparative analysis I have developed has shown 9 core principles fostered by these dance departments. 1. From repetition towards emergence. From a vertical pedagogical hierarchy, competitive and preoccupied primary with understanding and excelling through repetition, the educational process moves toward a learner-centered approach concerned with the building of individual and collective experiences. Two, principle of appropriateness, update, and transformation. This principle recognizes knowledge is not a fixed or defined process, but an open-ended activity. Therefore, it can be reassessed according to the people and context engaged in the learning process through the encouragement of an open mind and development of critical thinking. Regarding the technical aspect of dance, this principle favors awareness of a person's own driving forces. Furthermore, in the process of exploring and building a movement language, the flowering of identity is accepted. Their students is the one that outlines their own interests and takes the educational development into their own hands.
Esta escuela tiene la oportunidad de explorar realmente, ¿no? O sea, con demasiada apertura sobre ti, sobre tu cuerpo, ¿no? Como bailarín. Y eso se me hace algo como súper lindo, porque por lo menos para mí es como buscarme a mí y no buscar algo que tenga que ver más con cumplir algo con los demás. A través de eso me puedo liberar y puedo encontrar cuál es mi danza, ¿no? Y explorarla realmente hasta donde yo pueda llevarla. Y eso de alguna manera pues quita pesos, ¿no? Como pensar en que tengo que levantar la pierna súper alto o que tengo que tener una técnica súper buenísima para poder realmente ser una bailarina, ¿no?
Que la danza contemporánea es la única de las formas dancísticas que le otorgan a las personas la confianza de ser quien son, que le otorgan a las personas la confianza de creer, de creerse, de sentirse insustituibles.
3. Principle of authenticity refers to the unfolding of one's own voice. It starts with the self-awareness of the physical, cultural, emotional, and cognitive aspects, among others, without forgetting the traces of colonialization that are still present in Mexico today. Students have to recognize their value as a person, their place in the world, and their ability to become dancing corporality. Vulnerability is a key component, encouraging the maker's transparency, fulfillment, and joy through a process that goes from imitation to creation.
Centramos la formación fuera de los estudiantes. El centro de atención desde donde se construye todo no es ese conocimiento que ya existe, sino los estudiantes, que es esta cuestión de la construcción de la poética personal, como ese proceso de encontrarse a uno mismo que desarrollan los estudiantes en diálogo con ese otro conocimiento que sí existe, que está ahí y del que yo puedo tomar, ¿no? Del que los profes tienen y del que ellos buscan fuera de la escuela, que de alguna manera traen e integran.
4. Principle of pluralism. Since the aforementioned institutions embrace different perspectives on dance, sometimes even opposing perspectives between them, they become places of multiplicity. The notion of contemporary dance expands, cutting across the limits of the discipline, which results in the diversification of the professional's field. Dance knowledge is applied to life, extend its scope beyond artistic boundaries. 5. Principle of potentiality. Due to the stimulation of a transdisciplinary approach, students face a reconstruction process in which they recognize new logic to perceive themselves, relationships, and the world. The aim is that the student deepens his/her critical thinking, political stance, aesthetic view, and experience of their own corporality. Here, the teacher's task is to remember that acts open a door into the realm of what cannot be seen.
¿Cuál es la intención o la apuesta profunda del ciclo? Que es ayudar a crear a apoyar esta voz artística personal y claro, que vaya descubriendo cuáles son sus enunciaciones estéticas, ¿no? Encontrarse es ganar el derecho de producirse, de crearse, ¿sí? Como uno de los actos políticos fundamentales es tener la capacidad de nombrarse uno mismo o una misma.
Nos ayuda a sacar al niño que todavía tenemos, y pienso que eso es muy importante en la danza y en el teatro y en todas las disciplinas.
Six, principle of enterprising. Students are considered to be agents of social change. Consequently, a proactive attitude is fostered through the development of self-confidence and the recognition of their worthiness, abilities, skills, and the interest each one of them has. This principle encourages students to be autonomous and with initiative, and in many cases entails bravery for facing the unknown. Fortunately, we can perceive that in the certification processes. The work and the thesis submitted by the graduated students are no longer a requirement for obtaining the degree. Therefore, the ultimate goal of this is building a real-life path within dance.
Al ponerte en esta angustia de moverte y si me veo ridículo, moverme y si no les gusta, moverme y si me tropiezo, moverme, ese conocimiento es valiosísimo.
O sea, cuando bailo sé que si salto me van a decir, no manches, salta bien alto, entonces fue como de, ya no voy a saltar. O sea, en mi siguiente trabajo no va a haber saltos. Sé que sé girar y sé que van a esperar que gire, entonces digo, no voy a girar tampoco. No hay giros, se acabaron los giros. Tiene que ser algo interno del puro movimiento. Fue entrar otra vez a la escena, pero ahora sí sin las cosas por las que me siento que me definen. Todos giraban y todos saltaban y todos tenían un vestuario bien elaborado y cosas así. Y yo nada más me quedo ahí parado. Y me amarro el mantel de mi casa como falda, entonces... Pero otra vez volvió a pasar, o sea, fue como que la gente me dijo, no manches, me gustó mucho tu trabajo. Y hasta ahora como que estoy haciendo como estos movimientos, siento el peso de cómo una sola mano como puede decir muchas cosas, ¿no? O solo un gesto, entonces eso ha sido como lo que ha pasado, creo.
Of uncertainty. Many spaces have emerged for the body's knowledge as an intuition that emphasizes experience above results. Likewise, instead of focusing on guiding process only, teachers also sustain and accompany such process through the building of a safe space where shelter is provided without falling into overprotection. The teacher does not interfere, does not assert his/her presence, but recognizes he/she is simply giving an experience with which the students can dialogue. Success is not considered as an achievement goal, but as a progression, and the attempt that cannot thrive are still considered to be a crucial part of their own path. Since mistakes are not regarded as a burden, the exploration process is made easier.
Precisamente estamos sin certidumbres, ¿no? Porque no sabemos claramente a dónde se va a llegar, pues, porque estamos haciendo una apuesta de muchos cambios de estructuras que nos funcionaban, pero que ya no están funcionando. Esto de la productividad, tiempo, dinero, o sea, nos está o sea, no podemos, o sea, el arte en verdad no puede estar ahí. Entonces, estamos generando otras relaciones y otros modos de producir la danza.
8. Principle of permeability and collaboration. As long as we are permeable, we are able to accept others into our own bodies. This approachable body stance builds a contra-hegemonic relation between individuals based on respect and care, where the ability to listen through the dance is enabled to be connection between trust and vulnerability. The educational work unfolds in collectives that are aware of their diversity, moving from a competitive relational logic towards a logic based on bonding.
Entonces yo digo, ¿para qué carajo sirve una escuela si no es también para en una sociedad tan lastimada como la nuestra? No tenemos el deber también de acompañar. Entonces para mí eso es clave.
Es un espacio poderoso para la resistencia. Es un espacio, ¿por qué? Porque genera empatía, porque me pone a mí en disyuntivas éticas, me pone a mí en la angustia de la libertad. Como es danza contemporánea, podría hacer cualquier cosa.
Que la danza es un lugar desde el cual miras el mundo.
Pues el papel de un bailarín no se limita solo a estar en un escenario.
Pues creo que todos somos cuerpo y todos podemos ser creativos.
Nine. Schools are proposed as nodes on social transformation. Dance has grown amid a culture of violence against the body, in which individual identities are built in opposition to one another. Given such violent context, the four schools mentioned above advocate for an utopian approach, rather than pay attention to social demands only. They work for a desirable world. They recognize that on the quest for objectiveness, creative processes have been sterilized, and the germinal seed of creation cannot grow on sterile soil, but through the transformative power of joy, self-awareness, relationship with others, and creativity.